That sounds like the next member of Parliament for St. Peter. Excellent. I told you we have the best of the lot. Character-wise, professional-wise, Christian-wise, you name it, the Labour Party has it in the candidates. Thank you, Mayor Motley, for the choices that you have helped us to make as a people to change Barbados. I want, ladies and gentlemen, to bring you another speaker. And I just need a little more silence from you because we are getting the feedback. And to remind you that we are in rural Barbados. The Barbados Labour Party has only lost 2 of the seats in rural Barbados. That is St. James South and St. Lucie. All the others have been, over the last 10, 15 years, big seats won by the Barbados Labour Party. And I have a problem, though, because the Democratic Labour Party seems to be wanting forever to divide and rule. And as a result, we in the north of Barbados are suffering as a result of the draconian measures they have set up, but as well as the services that they have refused to give us. Colin would have told you about water just now. I spoke earlier about the potholes, and so did he. But sanitation is another one, where that not the NSRL, but the tipping fee has caused rural Barbados, especially in the north, to become the dumping ground of a lot of Barbadians. I want to let you know, St. John has been a seat held by the Democratic Labour Party for more than 3 decades. But you know, St. John feeling the squeeze too. And St. John is feeling the squeeze because the Democratic Labour Party has taken it for granted that the St. John seat is theirs forever. Well, I am going to bring you a young man this evening who has been an excellent youth commissioner for more than 20 years, working in the trenches, mobilizing young people to become good citizens and to look towards skills, employment, and offering service to Barbados. He is a fitting individual and candidate for the Barbados Labour Party because he brings with him the experience of working and getting along with people. He brings with him the expertise that is necessary because he has the charisma to be able to make that difference. He brings with him ideas to be put into policies that will help lift St. John from where it is right now. Because you sit and watch that member of Parliament for St. John from 2011 until now, 8 years? For 8 years, that member has never spoken for 15 minutes in Parliament representing the interests of the people in St. John. And there's so many challenges. Well, Charles Griffith, the Youth Commissioner, is the person who will come and give you the representation that you, the people of St. John, and you, the people of the North, need, because he has the capacity to make the difference. And what he does not know, we in Team BLP will help him and handhold him and nurture him. And so this evening, ladies and gentlemen, coming from rural Barbados in the parish of St. John is our candidate, Charles Griffith, who will speak to you about his plans and make the difference in St. John whenever that election is called. Welcome, Charles. All aboard? All aboard?
Blessings on us all. I bring you greetings from the parish of St. John, and I want to thank my supporters this evening. In a sense, the journey now starts. Representation will come to the people of St. John through myself whenever the next election is called. Now, I am new to this, so by means of introduction, I just want to give you some background information about myself. I was born in the parish of St. John, lived in the parish of St. John, and loved in the parish of St. John. I'm currently working as a youth officer in the Ministry of Culture, Youth, and Sports. I'm the father of 3 children who are here this evening, and one of the reasons why I'm here representing St. John this evening is the fact of the success of my children, and I want that to spread throughout the length and breadth of St. John. They're here, they walk me in. My son, Akeem, is at university, finishing off a degree in accounts. My daughter, Destiny, is here, and she's a medical doctor at the hospital. And my last daughter, Nia, is also here this evening representing, and she would have just started her journey in law. She's doing her law degree. So I feel blessed to be here this evening to represent the people of St. John, because for the last, in particular, 10 years, we had no representation in St. John. We had someone masquerading as the representative in St. John. But I am here to say this evening that change will come to the parish of St. John. I'm here to say that true representation will come to the parish of St. John. I'm currently working, by means of information, I'm currently working as a youth commissioner. And prior to that, I worked for 6 years as a draftsman. So my involvement in St. John would have started maybe 20 or more years ago in youth development. Not youth development as we know it now, but youth development at ground level. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about this evening. There was a time not so long ago when blood was flowing on the buses in St. John, when Sherburne was at war with my community, Edgecliff. And the then representative just took a hands-off position. Nobody got involved. But I believe that it was necessary to quell what was going to be a storm. We had individuals who were lying in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as a result of being injured. So I went to Sherburne and I spoke to the men in Sherburne who were fighting. And I went to Edgecliff, my community, and I spoke to the guys who were fighting. And I said, we need to put this down, because there should be no need for black people to be fighting and for blood to be flowing in the parish of St. John. And we came together and we quelled what was a storm in St. John. So I am saying that my journey into politics is not just by chance. It is something that I believe I need to do for my parish and for my country by extension. Yeah? So one of the things that I would have done in my job was to facilitate an initiative called Project Oasis, and some of you may be familiar with Project Oasis. And it touched the lives of a segment of our community that has been marginalized and have been left to suffer the block culture in Barbados. Nobody is dealing with the block culture in Barbados, and those guys need somebody to show them the way and how to develop themselves. Yeah? So I am here this evening offering myself as the representative for St. John, and change will come to my parish in St. John. It will come, because proactive initiatives and the need to better persons in St. John will happen. We have a current representative who spent 10 minutes in Parliament articulating whatever it is that she believes she should articulate. I mean, the last session, she spoke about the St. John Polyclinic. And the St. John Polyclinic, my friends, is in stress as I stand here this evening. There's a major problem with storage at the St. John Polyclinic. We have pensioners who are standing up on the outside of the St. John Polyclinic waiting to get in on evening. And I'm saying on morning, and I'm saying to you, change will come to my parish. Yeah? Now, this is my last job. This is my last job. The representation of the people in St. John is my last job. And I will do it until the day the last breath is in me. So, what I'm saying is that St. John needs development. We are, and it is difficult saying this, we are the worst parish in St. John as it relates to development. The road network in St. John, I mean, there are potholes everywhere, right? On Friday, I looked at a book in my office that would chronicle the number of youth groups that are functioning in St. John. And there are no youth groups functioning in St. John. In 2008, when the DLP came to power, one of the first things that the then Prime Minister did was to move me from St. John as a youth commissioner. The first thing was to move me from St. John as a youth officer. And since then, projects for our young people have been stymied. There's absolutely nothing happening of note in St. John to develop young persons. Can you believe that a tattoo was staged in St. John a couple weeks ago? And right next door, we have a situation where the hard courts, where people engage in sports, and the rings were done for an inordinate length of time. And the representative for St. John is passing through Gore Hill on a regular basis, and nothing is being done to facilitate that particular hard court. So I am saying that I offer myself to St. John because I have been involved in community development all my life. And I believe that there's a need for people in St. John to step to a different level with new representation. And I'm suggesting this evening that Charles Griffith will provide the necessary representation for all of St. John. Yeah? Now, the reality is that we were involved, we being the Ministry of Youth at the time, in an initiative that was, it was copied throughout the Caribbean. And I just want to spend a little time dealing with that particular initiative. Some of you may be aware of the initiative called Project Oasis that look at targeting those particular guys who reside on the blocks in Barbados and providing them with an opportunity to develop themselves in several ways. And when this particular wicked administration came to power, that particular initiative, Project Oasis, was jettisoned as far as the young persons in Barbados are concerned. So that particular project dealt with going to the blocks across Barbados and offering individuals a second chance in life. Those who could not necessarily enter the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic because the requisite qualifications were not in place, Project Oasis was putting those particular youngsters back in the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic. And this wicked government came in and jettisoned Project Oasis and replaced it by a program that is falling flat, absolutely flat on its face. But I know that my political leader will fix that. Because the reality is that none of those persons who are on the block, they should not be jettisoned, not just left on the blocks to their own accord. And I believe that Project Oasis, maybe in another form, will return. Now, we have a situation in St. John where, in terms of development, if you look at the parishes in Barbados, we have no development in St. John. And I heard the representative in Parliament chanting and talking all kind of nonsense about the polyclinic. But nothing else is happening in the parish of St. John. And I'm saying, and I'm pledging to the people of St. John and those who are here that I will bring development to St. John that will move my people forward. And that is a solid promise as I stand here this evening, because nothing is happening in St. John. We have a hard court, we have no sporting teams, we have a playing field, no sporting teams. Look, a landowner gave the representative in St. John a parcel of land and said to her, develop this land for St. John. 2.5 years later, and the land is still idle in my parish. But I will fix that. I will fix that, because the youngsters in St. John and the population in St. John deserve better than what is masquerading as representation in the House of Parliament. Much better. And I solemnly pledge that Charles Griffith will provide the level of representation that is required in St. John, because that is my parish. I have lived and loved in St. John all my life. So when I stand here before you this evening, this is a journey that is not only my journey. This is a journey that is fueled by all the residents in St. John who understand that representation should come their way. It can't be this fancy thing of just supporting or going with an individual who believes that the people in St. John likes begging too much. Can you imagine that? I mean, over 4,000 votes in the last election, and you believe that the people of my parish, of my constituency, you believe that they like begging too much. And I'm suggesting that we will fix that in the next election. So no matter, there's a mass of confusion as to who will come from the Democratic Labour Party to challenge Charles Griffith, but I don't care. Because whoever comes, the people in St. John are ready for change. They're ready for change. And I'm suggesting that there are projects that will come to St. John. All of those guys who reside on the blocks in St. John will be facilitated with projects that will move them to the next level, because it is what's supposed to happen. So when we have the Democratic Labour Party representative in St. John who's bankrupt, totally bankrupt of ideas to move my parish forward, I'm suggesting to all of you this evening, change will come to my parish and to the people in St. John. I got involved in political life because I believe that I can make a difference. I would have outlined the journey that my children are taking this evening. But there are others in St. John who need to feel as if they're empowered. While canvassing, I went to a household and the lady said to me, my daughter would have done A-levels, she would have completed that, she's ready for university and cannot find the funds to enter university, and she's in a state of depression because of this wicked government that introduced a fee for those persons who can't afford a fee. And my political leader would have indicated that that will change. So I am saying that hope is there for those youngsters in St. John who aspire to have a university education. And I'm here in the constituency of my comrade Dale. And Dale would have said to me, anytime you need me in St. John, just call. And the level of representation that you're seeing in St. Joseph that is coming from Dale, we don't know that representation in St. John. How many people in Barbados are aware that St. John had a similar and almost acute problem with water as Dale? But you heard nothing from the representative in St. John. Nothing in relation to what was going on in St. John. But Dale was there every day on the forefront, fighting for the people in St. Joseph. And I'm suggesting again that change will come to my parish whenever the elections are called, because I'm ready and willing to serve the people in St. John. Yeah? And I am prepared to walk anywhere behind my political leader because of the stature of the lady that we call Mayor Amor Mortley. And I'll give you an example of what I'm speaking of. Not so long ago when we were in power, Ms. Morley asked us to bring a number of youngsters from the block to the Ministry of Education because she wanted a first-hand information about the plight of that particular grouping. And Marcus and I, Marcus is here, my brother, we brought 2 busloads of youngsters from off the block to the Ministry of Education. And Ms. Mortley was blown away at the time by the numbers that we put inside of that conference room. And one of the things at the end of the presentation, she called Marcus and myself and said, look, ensure that you get names of all of the youngsters who turn up this evening and make sure they benefit from Project Oasis. That is the statue of the lady that is leading me and leading our party. So I say to you this evening that I am comfortable as the candidate in St. John. There are plans for St. John going forward in terms of how we treat to the youngsters in St. John and how we treat to St. John as a whole, because St. John is crying out for representation for the last 10 years. And I'm suggesting this evening that here I am. Well, more than 10 I'm hearing from the people in St. John. But understand that, I mean, this is difficult in terms of turning around what they believe is a safe seat. But I want to suggest to you this evening that change can come in St. John. Change will come. And I'm seeing the light as an indication that I must wrap. But I am prepared to walk in the fire. In the same way that Shadrach, Meshach was in the fire, I'm saying that Charles Griffith will step in the fire every time for the good people of St. John. I thank you.